Hello, and welcome to this live author interview with BigWorldNetwork.com, the world's premier episodic literary network. This is our fourth author interview, and I'm joined today by co-host Amanda Mavison. Hi, Amanda.
Hi, good afternoon.
And Mario Hernandez. And Mario will explain how you can participate if you're watching this live and ask questions. Mario?
Hey y'all. So as always, if you've seen any of our other ones, you can always ask questions through email via questions@bigworldnetwork.com, or if you are actually part of Google+, you can ask questions right here on the video, and we'll answer them as soon as we get them. So please do ask anything you like.
All right. And our guest today is none other than Berin Stevens. Hello, Berin.
Howdy. Good to be here.
And Berin has published the Myrick series with 2 books out, correct, Amanda? And 1 completed series and a new one starting on Tuesday this week.
Sort of correct. He's had 2 books published. Yes, one is part of the Delroy series, which is Delroy versus the Istari, and then Tales of Myrick the Not So Magnificent has 1 volume out as well. And then he actually is about to run a new Delroy series, but is also concurrently running a completely separate series with us that's sort of a young adult superhero one, A Sidekick: Secrets to Saving the City.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Berin and I actually share something in common. I know we're both fans of jazz music, and you are a musician, correct, Berin?
Well, I pretend to be anyway. I don't know if I really am or not.
I think the music on all of your series would beg to differ.
Yeah. What was your first love, writing or music?
Track and field. As I got older, so I couldn't quite do that anymore. But I'd probably have to say music was next.
Yeah.
That's what I, of course, studied in college, and then the writing was kind of off and on. Mostly, a little bit in high school, and then a little bit in college, and then life took over as my kids were younger, and diapers had to be changed and all that. So writing kind of disappeared for a long time until we moved back to Utah in 2005. Before that, I was living in Alaska. But then I finally, with teaching in the afternoon, I had time in the mornings to seriously take some time to write.
Yeah. Now, are you from Alaska originally? Is that where you were born?
Yep, born and raised, 3rd generation.
No kidding. And you still have family there, I assume?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. And now you live in Utah, correct?
Yep.
Very cool. When you were a child, did you write much? I mean, when you were a younger child, or is it something that came, later after college or high school, or when did you kind of get the bug for it?
I'm not exactly sure. I remember I wrote a book in 5th grade that was absolutely horrible. It was about the Beatles going to the moon.
I like that concept.
But I don't have a copy of it anymore. I mean, probably that's a good thing too. But then I don't think I really caught the bug until after I read The Hobbit. And after I read that book, I wanted to explore worlds like that a lot more. And so that's when I started dabbling in it and writing some really horrible stuff. But it seemed like it was always my more comedic stuff that people liked, so I started heading more towards that direction.
Sure. Where do you get the inspiration for your books? I mean, your books are extremely creative, I have to admit, and they're very witty. But where do you draw from? Writing comedy has probably got to be the most difficult thing there is, I think, at least in my opinion. Where do you get your inspiration from?
Well, I don't know where I get the inspiration. I mean, I think pretty much when you're a writer, everything is an inspiration. You'll be, sitting at a bus stop or something, watching something, and all of a sudden, you see something that kind of triggers an idea. As you get out and travel and see more things, that triggers other ideas, and so I find pretty much inspiration in everything.
Yeah.
The problem is trying to find or figure out which one of those ideas is the one to develop and all that. That's the hard part.
Yeah. And you have 5 children, correct?
Yeah, 5 kids, a dog, and a cat.
Yeah. So where do you find the time to write, and where do you write? I mean, how do you keep yourself productive and stick with it? And also, I need to mention that Berin also narrates his own books on or his own series on Big World Network. So that's a lot of time involvement. Where do you write, and how do you find the time away from all the distractions of life?
Well, I'm still kind of, I think in some ways have the perfect type of schedule where most of my teaching is not until kids get out of school. And so that's when I teach music lessons. And I just finally figured out, like, well, duh, I got like these 2 or 3 hours in the morning where I don't have to be anywhere or do anything necessarily. I could practice. But, I'm trying to get back to doing that more. I'm actually trying to make myself write less so I can spend a little more time keeping my music up to
You're a morning person, I take it.
Yeah, definitely. And I what I've found is if I write in the morning versus, or sometimes, like on a weekend day or something like that, I'll actually write in the afternoon. It takes me twice as long to do as much in the afternoon as I can do in the morning. So definitely morning works best for me. I usually have a laptop set up in our bedroom because that's the quietest room in the house. And I have to have absolute silence when I write because I'm easily distracted. So I got my cave, nice and dark and all that, and so I just sit down and write, and I can usually do about 1,000 to 1,500 words an hour.
Wow.
Do you ever listen to any
good words, but
do you ever listen to any like music while or is it just like you need like white noise or just kind of like that silence?
I have to have dead silence. In fact, music, to me, listening to music while writing is the same as listening to an audiobook while writing.
Really?
Music
I guess that makes
sense.
I guess that makes sense as a musician. So the books that you've published, you have published other books, but the 2 books that you've published so far with Big World Network, of course, started as episodic series. How difficult was it to transition to that sort of episodic style writing? Is it a good fit for you, or was it more challenging?
It's in a lot of ways not a big difference. My first book I wrote, The Dragon War Relic, I wrote that back in 2005, and I did it with, and actually started off with my daughter. My oldest daughter wanted to be a writer, and she's the one that told me about NaNoWriMo, and so I thought, well, teenage daughters are kind of hard for fathers to communicate with, so why don't I do this NaNoWriMo thing? I used to write, why don't I just try this thing again? And, so we can have kind of a father-daughter bonding type experience. And what came out of that is I finally learned how to not be well, I'm a perfectionist, and that's one of my drawbacks. But with NaNoWriMo, you don't have time to be a perfectionist. You have to plow through and just keep writing. And of course, the pace you have to keep is 1,666 words a day if you want to get to the 50,000 by the end of the month. And so I pretty much always write somewhere around 1,600 words a day whenever I write. Or in the sitting, because I'm now just kind of programmed into that NaNoWriMo mode. And so when I went to the serial writing, I've just basically did the same thing. Probably the biggest thing I've had to make an adjustment for, though, is trying to get story arcs to fit into 12 episode seasons, or at least try to get to a finishing point in those 12 episodes, which is a little bit of a challenge for me because I tend to go off the reservation. Even when I try to do an outline, outlines and me we don't quite get along yet. But I've had to learn to combine my pants writing with the outline writing in order to fit things in.
So that brings up a good question for prospective writers. Do you have a predetermined story arc? Do you know where it's going to go when you start the series?
Absolutely not. I'm definitely a discovery writer in that regard. It makes sense, because there's the saying, begin with the end in mind. and it really makes sense to me. You come up with an ending and and direct the story towards that ending. But for the life of me, I cannot figure out an ending until I've sequentially worked all the way through the storyline. So what I do now is what I call discovery outlining, where I just sit down with a pad and paper and a pencil and just start jotting down ideas and trying to put them in a sequential order. And then if things don't work out, then I just scratch out a couple lines and start over. In fact, just yesterday, I was well, the last few weeks I've been working on a new Myrick story, and I was getting kind of lazy, and I didn't get around to doing my outline, and I wrote myself into a corner. So I had yesterday's writing time was spent. I had to stop, pull out the paper, and just replan things out. I'm going to have to scrap a couple chapters to be able to rescue this story, but I got reminded that I've got to, if I'm going to stay on task, I have to have some form of outline to work from.
Yeah. By the way, in a moment, Amanda will talk about your series and books, but you have the best titles ever for the Myrick series. In fact, this season is titled what? This is my favorite one.
Oh, you mean for the Delroy one, the new one coming up?
Delroy, yeah, for Delroy. This one is what? Delroy and the Earth.
Versus the In-Laws of Earth.
Yeah, versus the In-Laws of Earth. I love that title. That's just perfect. Let me finish up by asking, is there any type of writing you would like to try that you haven't done? Obviously you excel at comedy and with a little bit of fantasy and science fiction entwined into it. What would you like to try to write, if anything, other than kind of outside of your normal realm of writing?
Well, I think the first thing I wanted to write when I decided I wanted to be a writer is I wanted to do epic fantasy. Of course, my attempts in the past were epic fails instead. I do have one that's kind of an epic fantasy, a full novel that I've been shopping around lately. So far, no takers on it, but the whole story is, I think, 136,000 words, and I got some rough ideas for some future things. So I would still like to get into some epic fantasy. Recently, I've been toying with the idea of doing a Western. I grew up on a lot of the old Western stuff. And I finally read my first Louis L'Amour book last year, so that's something I'm toying with. Of course, I don't know if I can ever not mix genres, so it'll probably be a Western, science fiction, comedy, or something. I don't know.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, very cool. Before I hand it over to Amanda, I just want to remind everybody that's watching live, there's several ways you can participate and ask Berin questions. One is simply by emailing questions at symbol, was at the ampersand, questions at BigWorldNetwork.com. Or if you are watching on Google+, you can ask the questions directly there. So with that, we'll let Amanda talk about your books and series.
So the first thing that you ran with us was the first Delroy story, Delroy versus the Istari, which is a finished, published book. And then after that, like we said, some of the best titles. After that, the one that just finished was Delroy versus the Pirates of Poughkeepsie. And then, yes, Delroy versus the In-Laws of Earth is actually coming up this week. It starts on Tuesday, December 16th, is when the first episode will start airing on BWN. So why don't you start by telling us a little bit about Delroy and what inspired this character and his stories?
Delroy was an epic fail. It started off in my writing group. We decided to do a challenge to write a story about a villain from the perspective of the villain.
Oh, yeah, I remember you telling me that.
And I ended up, of course, with Delroy instead of a really good villain. But that first chapter, basically the way I wrote for the writing group is still the existing first chapter, and then I liked the character enough that I decided to go ahead and just write out a story. It ended up only being 23 chapters, and I was like going, what do I do with this story? Because I knew my publisher that I had wouldn't really necessarily want it, And then I heard about you guys, and I thought, oh, what the heck? I'll just throw this at Big World Network and see what happens. Because I mean, technically it's an adult story, but I write everything like it's middle grade, so
Yeah.
it's not adult. It's just it's still written for kids. So it's kind of a weird thing to try to market, but you guys liked it and accepted it, and I had to figure out how to get one more chapter in there so we could get 2 seasons out of it. But other than that, it slipped in there pretty good.
Well, he's a very likable villain, by the way.
Yeah, villain, yeah. No, I love knowing that because it makes sense, but then you actually get to see how much he really grows. You know, knowing that he started off as a villain. So the idea for a villain actually makes a lot of sense, and it's been a lot of fun to see how he's changed and grown and become less and less of a failed hero. You know, he's actually succeeded a few times.
A couple times, accidentally.
Usually accidentally, that's true. I actually wanted you to share the story, and I can't remember now which of your kids you said it was, but it was one of your children had a character that they wanted written out of their story, so you took the character and wrote it into the Pirates of Poughkeepsie.
Yeah, that's my oldest daughter again. She's in college and she hasn't had a lot of time to do a lot of NaNoWriMo, but not this year, but back, I guess, 2013, she actually did NaNoWriMo then, and she had this character named Ethan that she just didn't know what to do with him, and finally she just wrote him out of the story where he just says, bye everybody, and he just fades out of the story. And so I thought, well, maybe Ethan should show up in my story and do something significant. And so I stole her character and put him into my story.
It worked perfectly too. Like I loved Ethan's character. I think it fit for him to appear when he did, and it worked out so well. I just love knowing the backstory there for that one. And then completely different from Delroy, which is a sci-fi story. You've also ran the Tales of Myrick the Magnificent, which had various other also really great titles for each of the stories. About socks and golems and all these great adventures, which is more of a fantasy one. What was it about Myrick? Where did he come from?
He's actually one of my oldest story ideas. I always thought it'd be kind of funny to have a fantasy story from the perspective of someone that carried messages around. So, in fact, I think I even tried that story back when I was in college, and had a incarnation back then. It was awful, but just the character kind of stuck with me, and so I started. In fact, before I heard about you guys, I was thinking, well, serial stories might be something that would work with the internet, and so I started writing a few short Myrick stories. And of course, in the print version, the first 3 stories that I wrote are in there, so you got the full compilation, I guess. Like one of the stories, actually 2 of the stories I wrote for other anthologies, and one of the anthologies folded. In fact, the Crypt of the Undead Sorcerer and Other Vacation Spots was supposed to go to another anthology, but that one got dropped. And then, of course, Of Weeds and Wizardry was in an anthology where all the stories had to be about tumbleweeds.
Oh, I didn't know that's where that came from.
Yeah, the name of the anthology was Wandering Weeds, and so I thought, well, Myrick could deal with tumbleweeds, so we had that. And then of course, when I found out about you guys, I had Delroy ready to go, and so I pitched that. And then I thought, well, I always thought Myrick would be a great serial story, and so I started doing the longer 12-episode stories that I could put through with you guys.
And so those are 2 that have published books currently, and then also running, which I know sometimes you regret that you're running 2 series at the same time, and I've gotten that from a few others. But we have a Sidekick's Guide to Saving the City, which had a few iterations of its title as well. But again, that's a young adult superhero one, and I'm really enjoying that one.
Yeah, that one. Of course, I envisioned that as a full novel, and I shopped that around for a little bit, and I had several agents tell me that, well, we like it, but there's too much stuff like that already. I did
Really?
get one contract offer from a publisher, but I didn't like it, so I turned it down. And then I guess it was back in June when we were up visiting in Alaska, and I found out you guys were short on series. So I thought, well, I got this other one just sitting here, and I thought, well, but how am I going to modify it to fit 12 seasons or 12 episode seasons? And I looked at how many chapters. There are exactly 48 chapters.
Perfect. Yeah.
So it's already ready to go. I didn't really have to make any changes.
Yeah, well, so that one is currently running with our mid-season, and then, or no, that one's would be with the fall season, and then, like I said, the next Delroy adventure starts this Tuesday, December 16th, and I'm sure there will be more adventures to come.
And let me bring up that that cover. It's a fantastic title and cover here. There we go.
Oh yeah, the new one for Delroy. No, I love In-Laws of Earth. That is probably my favorite for title-wise for the Delroy ones. That is pretty funny.
I do have to
titles, but that one came to me right away.
That one was easy.
I have to laugh a little bit because when Berin sent me the information of what he wanted for a cover, he's all like, it's like kind of think of the Star Trek mirror like thing, but not like that, you know, not too much like that. And I was like, I know exactly what you're talking about. I know that reference.
Sometimes I have to translate what authors want, but with that one, I knew you would know exactly what he was talking about.
Yeah.
Don't worry about that one.
Come on, Strecky.
Exactly. Yeah. There's lots of geeks in the BWN family. That's not a problem. And then one more reminder again for people to ask questions if they would like. Otherwise, I'm going to pass it on to Mario.
So just wrapping up a little bit here, if you guys want to find any more information about Berin and everything, he does have some social network things. I know you have a website and a Twitter and a Facebook, I believe. You want to throw that out there for people?
Yeah, my website is just BerinStevens.com, of course with my unique spellings, but if you see one of my book covers, yeah, just BerinStevens.com. I've got, of course, my Facebook page. As an individual, I'm under Berin, but I also have a book page for fans and stuff called Berin's Books. And of course, on Twitter, just Berin Stevens on Twitter.
Very cool. And they can, contact you there. I'm sure ask questions too, and please do. I mean, I know all our authors love hearing from all you out there because it's good to know that your story's getting read. We love that too. So, in the whole realm of we got so many things. Used to be just like paperbacks, and that was about it. It's hardcover or softcover, but we have ebooks and audiobooks. And do you have a preference on how you read stuff?
I definitely prefer books. I don't know if I really care between softcover or hardcover. I mean, I read ebooks as well, but I don't know. This doesn't quite. To me, it's not quite as enjoyable reading it on a iPad or something.
Sure.
I'd much rather have the pages there that I can flip through and smell the pages. And I'm kind of old school in that regard, I guess. So. I mean, it would make much more sense if I could just get everything in ebook. And I mean, we've got a room. We had to turn one of our bedrooms when we bought this house, and it's I built ceiling to floor bookshelves, and they're full. There's no more room. We had to put some more bookshelves in our basement. Now those are full.
Crazy.
So yeah, we love books. So.
What a wonderful problem to have, right?
Yes.
Do you have a favorite book or something that really just kind of inspired this whole writing thing for you?
Yeah, coming up with one favorite is hard. I mean, I guess the one that's nearest and dearest to my heart is probably The Hobbit. Since that was the one, I read some. I read Hardy Boys and things like that when I was younger, and I liked them okay, but they didn't fire up my imagination the way The Hobbit did. And of course, I went straight from The Hobbit through the entire Lord of the Rings, and I even read, as a 7th grader, I read The Silmarillion.
As a 7th grader, that's impressive.
Very much so.
I mean, cause I just loved that whole fantasy world concept. And then after that, I did end up inheriting a bunch of books that my brother and my aunts and uncles had there, and of course, they were mostly a lot of Edgar Rice Burroughs. Robert E. Howard, so I grew up reading a lot of Conan. But yeah, definitely a lot of Edgar Rice Burroughs, and Michael Moorcock was another person. So, and in fact, my early influence of swords and sorcery, that's kind of what Myrick stories are there, is they're kind of a subtle spoof of the old swords and sorcery stuff. And I don't know, I haven't really heard from too many people if they've noticed some of my hidden characters in there, like Nonak is actually, if you switch the first and last letters, it's Conan.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that I definitely noticed, and just the way he is, yeah.
And Cyril from San Diego, he's a spoof of Elric of Melniboné, who is one of Michael Moorcock's characters, a tragic character. So I've kind of had fun mixing some of my early reading into that. Probably more recently, I've been reading a lot of stuff by like Jim Butcher. I finally got into some of the Dresden Files stuff, and I love books with a sense of humor.
Yeah.
So I keep getting drawn towards that. Larry Correa's Monster Hunter books are a lot of fun. Brandon Sanderson stuff. I mean, that's kind of what I've been reading lately. But to pick a favorite, I don't know. It's too hard.
Right. It's kind of like trying to pick a top movie for me. Is like there are no top movies. I can give you like my top 10 best movies I think, but it's just like it's a group of things. It's not just one. So I totally understand that, and liking them for different reasons too, I'm sure. So you must be really excited about the Hobbit movies, and especially when Lord of the Rings came out. I mean, this new one, are you going to go see it?
I'll get there eventually. I don't know if I'll be able to see it this next week or not. The Hobbit movies haven't excited me as much as I had hoped they would. They're still pretty good. I still enjoy them. I'll watch them many times, I'm sure. But I definitely like the Lord of the Rings movies a little bit better. But still, the books are better.
Always.
No getting around that.
Right. So if you had to choose a world to live in one of your books that you've written, would you live in any of those?
Might be nice to visit.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
Let's see, because I've gone. Of course, my first book is pretty much modern day. My second book is modern day, but they do travel to 1927 New York. But I don't think I want to be there either. And then, Myrick's world's a little bit vicious and scary, and in some places. Delroy's world wouldn't be too bad. I definitely don't want to live on Earth.
That's true. Now that I've actually been to Earth reading the upcoming series, yeah, I would agree with you.
So do you have an inspiration in your life that really got you to want to write, or that some people will just have that thing that makes them want to do it, not just for themselves solely, but...
Well, I definitely have. Well, I'm not sure if it's a passion for writing or if it's a mental illness. I'm not making any money doing this. Why am I spending so much time doing all this writing stuff? And I've quit several times. I don't know how many times I've quit. And the next morning I get up and just start writing again. It just kind of keeps going. And I think this boils down to, when we look at our different personality traits, I am a very high creative. I have to be creating something. That's what pulled me into music. That's what pulled me into playing jazz. Being a jazz improviser allows me to just express my creative side. And so then, once, I got turned on to the fantasy world, and I just had this burning desire to create worlds like that.
Very much so. No, I totally understand. I mean, I think all of us kind of bring a little bit of that to BWN too, where we have stuff that inspires and creates us, and then we get to bring you guys and enjoy the stuff that you guys create, and it's just a wonderful network and community of people that I couldn't imagine not having. So that's really cool. I'm also curious, though, now that you talk about jazz and everything, and now that we know that you play and everything, is there anything like on YouTube or any kind of audio that we can hear from you?
Not a lot of stuff. I have another website, saxmyaxe.com.
Sax my axe.
And I've been doing I've been recording a lot of classical etudes, because I actually trained as a classical saxophonist first.
Okay.
I just realized as a sophomore in college that classical saxophonists don't get very many gigs, so I decided to start studying jazz as well. But I put up several etudes that are commonly played by saxophone students. So there's that side of my playing. There's a few, like there's a blues band I play with, Randy Mundy and the Monday Morning Blues, that has a few YouTube videos with me playing sax on them. Yeah, and there's probably a few other random things that got up at one time or another, but not a lot yet. I want to get some more jazz stuff. I'm working on writing some jazz etudes that I want to put up on my music site. That's kind of one of my Christmas projects, is to write several jazz etudes.
Yeah, because I'm sure I'd like to see it, so I'm kind of curious now. I'm actually trying to find the website right now, so.
There's no E on the end. It's just SAXMYAX.
Gotcha.
Good to know.
There you are. I can see you. I don't know if you can pull it up, Jim, but it's there.
Yeah, working on it.
And maybe just one last question. So when you read, obviously, and I think actually maybe we already answered this, but one of your favorite genres for reading on your own is probably sci-fi and fantasy. I mean, is there a reason why you're maybe drawn more to that and everything, or real life can be kind of boring, I guess?
I'm not sure what exactly drew me to it. It just, for some reason, that just fired my imagination when I was younger, and yeah, I just that's why I prefer to read now, is those types of genres. I'm trying to get myself to read other things though now. I'm trying to get some like suspense and more dramatic things, so I can kind of soak those things and bring them into my own writing. So I've read a few of the Dan Brown things lately and stuff like that. But still, if I'm going to pick up something, it's most likely going to be a fantasy or sci-fi. And if it's comedic, it's all the better.
It's the bread and butter right there.
Yep.
So, but just as a reminder to people, and thank you again, Berin, for staying with us, and I hope you enjoyed yourself, because I know we enjoy it like a lot. Sorry, I'm pushing my cat away because he's trying to get in front of the computer. But so if anybody's ever curious about when we do these things, we always update, and if you're a subscriber to our YouTube page, you also get information when we will do more of these and everything. And other author interviews, and we are always uploading audiobooks, the audio versions of our episodes on YouTube all the time, so if that's an easy way for you guys to listen, you can do that too. So if anybody else has any more questions, Amanda, Jim?
Yeah, so on the YouTube channel, I have that up there. We also, if you're an aspiring author or self-publishing author, we now have a weekly news series that runs about 2 minutes in length with news updates that are directed towards indie publishers, in particular self-publishing authors. And also, if you're watching this and you are unfamiliar with BigWorldNetwork.com, we are a serialized network, and it is a free site, and we have new episodes up every week on each day of the week, as you can see here, and we run in 12-week seasons. So each season is 12 episodes of a particular series, and we pretty much have a representation of about every genre available. It's coming up here, but my internet's slow.
I'm not sure that we don't have genre. I can't think of one that we really don't have, to be honest.
Well, since he mentioned westerns, I can vouch that I don't think we really have any westerns. Though Phineas, for the Phineas series, he kind of goes to the west in a brief period, but full-on western, we don't have that. No.
There you go, Berin. We need a series from a talented writer such as yourself. So
I should be doing 4 different series now. Is that what you're saying?
That's right.
Might stretch you a little thin. That's true.
But we trust you to do it. So if anybody, it's you, Berin.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious. I mean, since I started with you guys when you're like only a few months into it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you kept track of who has written the most episodes for you or not, but I was thinking it should be somewhere near the top.
You are near the top.
It have to be because you have more you have a few multiple series. Though I don't know. I feel like Dan's
had the longest running, Daniel Mitchell.
I'd have to check on that and like do some math quick.
Well, Daniel, yeah, because Daniel is 4 for Vlishkanath, 3 for Second Crusade, another 4 for the Revolt, and
now we're on Warlock.
Yeah.
Ton is up there as well, as is
Michael Young probably has a few.
Michael Young, yeah.
Yeah, there's several series. There's a few. I think you're probably in the top 5. That's definitely true.
How about for this interview, you are number 1?
There you go. Well, Berin, it's been an extreme pleasure to have you on. You've been one of our favorites to work with. You're an incredibly talented writer. I love the humor of your series. We're really proud to represent your books. And by the way, it's important to mention that you can purchase his books on either BigWorldNetwork.com on our store page, or from Amazon. The ebook and paperback are available on Amazon, and right now the audiobook is only available on our site, BigWorldNetwork.com, on the store page. But I would encourage you to buy his books. You won't be disappointed. They're extremely enjoyable. They're witty. They're fun. So it's been a very big pleasure working with you these last couple years, and we look forward to many more years with your talents and representing your series and books. Once again, a reminder, and Mario had mentioned it, be sure to check out our YouTube page and subscribe to that. And of course, you can become a patron on, am I saying it right? Patreon.com.
Yes. Patron on Patreon.com, yeah.
And you can find the link on BigWorldNetwork.com, and there's a lot of really neat perks. And actually, if you want to get a free copy of Berin's book, well, it's not exactly free, but if you become a Patreon for, I believe, $5 a month, Mario, you get an ebook a month. So that's one way to do it as well. But we encourage you to check out his book. You will not be disappointed. Anything anybody else wants to add?
No, I think we're
good. So thank you again, Berin. Thank you for all the watch and everything, and you all have a good day.
Take care.
My pleasure.
Yep.